And with that, we have another speaker from Cal EMSA, Dr. Howard Becker. Would you like to give
Thank you, Chairman Rodriguez and committee members. My name is Dr. Howard Becker, and I'm the Director of the Emergency Medical Services Authority, or EMSA. And thank you for the opportunity to participate in this hearing today. I'd like to provide a brief synopsis of how 911 location accuracy impacts California emergency medical care systems, although you've already heard the most cogent story as a personal account. EMSA is a department within the Health and Human Services Agency, and we're charged with providing statewide coordination and leadership for emergency medical services, largely accomplished through system oversight, regulations, practice guidelines, and quality improvement. We coordinate with 33 local EMS agencies that are comprised of 26 single counties and 7 multi-county agencies. An emergency ambulance service, which is typically accessed through 911, is provided by a mixture of public and private entities that operate in 338 zones. Approximately 4 million requests for emergency medical care are received each year and result in dispatch of personnel from a workforce of 60,000 certified emergency medical technicians and 20,000 paramedics licensed in California. We're also responsible for review and approval of EMS system plans for each local agency that includes their organization and use of statewide 911 emergency communication systems, the dispatch, and their response and transport. We work with these local EMS agencies to establish specialty systems of care such as trauma, cardiac, and stroke that require rapid response and transport by EMS providers. And finally, we also coordinate the response to multi-casualty incidences from bus crashes to large-scale disasters. The Emergency Medical Services recognizes the importance of an effective and statewide 911 communication system to assure that our responders are rapidly dispatched to the correct location. The legacy routing of our system for landline callers has already been discussed, and Chairman Rodriguez made the point that we now get 70% of our calls through cellular phones. This amounted last year to 18 million cellular calls for 911 services, and we are that's one of the highest numbers of any of the states studied. Of note also was the fact that 63% of California's cell phone calls to 911 did not share the precise location. Both our state EMS commission, comprised of 18 appointed stakeholders, as well as our local EMS agencies, have expressed concerns about inaccurate wireless call locations, inaccurate routing of wireless calls, and limitations in wireless 911 call transfer capabilities that delay timely emergency medical response. The EMS community supports the new FCC requirements to provide vertical localization of callers. However, it would be a major step if the 1996 goal of the FCC for just topical geographic location could be met consistently. As was noted on the news report, consumers frankly do not understand why most applications on their cellular phones accurately localize their location, but this information is not consistently communicated during a call for emergency assistance. And they also do not understand delays due to relay of calls and information that's not routed to the appropriate dispatcher. But I'll focus on how rapid 911 emergency medical response can improve patient outcomes. The other agencies here today can provide information specific to the technologic challenges and requirements to improve the system. EMS programs have built integrated medical systems to manage critical life-threatening medical conditions such as cardiac arrest, trauma, heart attack, and stroke that account for the majority of death and disability in our society. When circulation or breathing is impaired, 1 to 2 minutes can make a difference between life and death, as we heard in one account, or between independent functional status and the need for chronic medical and custodial care. The standard for care of these common medical emergencies includes rapid field response and transport times to definitive care. The American Heart Association has described early access as the first link in a chain of survival for cardiac arrest response and for optimal cardiac and stroke emergency patient care. Most EMS provider agencies have a goal for EMS to arrive on scene for a cardiac arrest within 4 minutes of the call to provide CPR and early defibrillation, followed by advanced life support within 8 minutes. Trauma represents another major group of medical emergencies that are time-sensitive. It is well documented that rapid response can save lives, and unnecessary time delays in the dispatch and response of emergency resources can result in poor outcomes. In most public safety dispatch centers, when the location of an emergency is questionable or unknown, dispatchers initiate a series of time-consuming investigative inquiries to determine the caller location. While the initial dispatcher questions a caller regarding landmarks and scene descriptions, a secondary dispatcher, if available, may contact the cell phone company provider of the caller to determine a possible location. In some cases, a dispatcher may have the area, cell site, or cell sector location, so emergency first responders are sent to conduct on-site area searches of the caller's approximate location. If available, dispatchers will send additional first responders, including law enforcement, to participate in the search, although this diverts limited emergency resources from the community. While providers respond, a trained and certified emergency medical dispatcher in the secondary PSAP provides pre-arrival instructions to the victim or family. Over the past 15 years, the Federal Emergency Communications, or FCC, and Congress have set regulatory deadlines for cellular carriers to provide location identification for 911 dispatch centers. And Emergency Medical Services supports implementation of national initiatives to enhance the current 911 emergency communication system, including the next generation technologies that allow for dispatch centers to receive texts, videos, and images, as well as location information. Although costs to this upgrade are major challenges for our provider agencies. In conclusion, rapid EMS response will be enhanced by improvements to 911 routing and location accuracy, which in turn will help maximize the health and welfare of all Californians during medical emergencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Becker. Do you have any questions or comments from board members? I do have a question. Dr. Becker, you talk about a cost. Do you have a roundabout figure on the cost you're talking about right now towards the end?
I do not. I'll have to rely on the other agencies who have done cost analyses for what the implementation and development of these systems.
Okay, thank you. Did you have? Okay, with that, see no other further questions, we'll go ahead and start our second panel. Thank you very much for your presentation. We have one quick question. Once again, assembly member.
For the department, and not so much a question, what would be helpful if you could also, in the request for the percentages of where SB County calls are being routed, I'm particularly interested in this. This is how in the weeds I've had to get on this. The Stork Tower cell tower. The Stork Tower? The cell tower that is located on Stork Tower. But we would love it for the whole county. But I'm very interested in particularly that tower.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, panel 2 will consist of the wireless providers in California and their association. CTIA, the Wireless Association, is here today. To introduce our presenter is Steve Carlson, California Government Affairs Counsel for CTIA. Presenting on behalf of the wireless companies will be Peter White, Executive Director, Global Public Policy for AT&T. Thank you very much for being here.
Mr. Chair and members, Steve Carlson, California Government Affairs Counsel for CTIA, the Wireless Association. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. We certainly understand the importance of this, the passion of the members of the committee, and we also wanted to give our condolences to those who have unfortunately been injured because the system doesn't always work perfectly. Having said that, what we'd like to do today is to share what we have done, are doing, and will in the future be doing to enhance public safety through wireless 911. We are the trade association of the wireless industry, including carriers, operating systems providers, handset providers, chip makers, in short, the entire wireless ecosystem. 911 is a constant priority for the industry, and I have represented the industry for over 20 years, and it has always been at the top of our list of important things to do. We have done this, and we have seen wireless 911 constantly improve. One of the things I would like to share is that we believe that wireless 911 has been a sea change in public safety and emergency response over the years, and Mr. White is going to share that with you today. I wanted to reflect back on a comment or part of the discussion that the committee had with Ms. Wong in terms of the 911 Advisory Board and some of the organizations that are going on. We would love to be part of that and part of those conversations up front, and we want to collaborate at the earliest stages possible with all of what's going on. And hopefully, one of the things that'll come out of the committee today it will be to urge all the stakeholders to be there, but be there up front when these issues are being discussed, and making sure that everybody's at the table while these things are going on. That is not always the case. Next, Mr. White's going to talk about what these new technologies are doing. Wireless 911 is, unfortunately, when we have a committee here like this, it's natural to focus on some of the ways the system sometimes doesn't work. But we also would like to share, and Mr. White will share in more detail, some of the ways that this wireless technology has been an amazing and incredible benefit to public safety and emergency response. And finally, to talk about what's going to be happening in the future. So, without going on any further, a nationally renowned expert on the subject who will be talking on behalf of the entire industry, but he is the AT&T's Executive Director of Global Public Policy, Peter White.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for being
Chairman Rodriguez, fellow legislators. Thank you for the opportunity to update the legislature on current wireless 911 issues here in California. In the span of 20 years, what has been achieved here in California in both providing residents and visitors with better access to help in an emergency, no matter where that emergency occurs, is nothing short of remarkable. And the wireless industry is committed to further improving the 911 system here in the state in the coming years. With the volume of wireless 911 activity here in California, as Assistant Director Wong pointed out, again, more than 26 million calls annually, 76% of the 911 calls being wireless, and those calls being routed to more than 450 PSAPs. I just want to give the committee a couple of reminders. The first is, whatever solution or solutions that are being discussed, they have to work for every handset, from the fanciest, latest smartphone fresh off the retail shelves to that phone that someone may have been using for 10 years now. Right. That also is true on the PSAP side, and there's a world of difference in resources potentially between the PSAP equipment and technology that is available in a city area as opposed to a rural area. So whatever is being done on a statewide basis has to work for all handsets and all PSAPs. And I think it's important to remember how complex the wireless E911 system is. It is, in fact, a system of systems, and that system is only as strong or as weak as the components in each segment. In order for that system to work, they all have to work together and they have to be integrated fully. They include the handset capability and function. They include the wireless network that's processing that 911 call. It includes the public safety network that takes that 911 call from the wireless network and gets it to a PSAP. And it also includes the PSAP operational side of things. In order to obtain the most effective location estimate, the 911 caller's handset must support current 911 technology, specifically GPS technology. If it's an older handset and it doesn't have a GPS receiver in it, it's not going to be able to get the more accurate GPS location. In addition, there may be terrain or other factors that limit the ability, even if the handset has that GPS radio receiver, in order to see enough GPS satellites in order to get a good location fix. And one comment based on a couple of prior witnesses' testimony, there's been discussion about the use of existing location and mapping applications. An important distinction to remember about the 911 system is the 911 system generates a location estimate for that caller when 911 send is sent. Those other location applications, in order to be found by whether it's a mapping location or a car service or a restaurant recommendation, that handset has to be tracked by the application and have those locations recorded at all times. So there's a distinct operating difference between the 911 system and those applications. Once that 911 call is placed by a customer, the wireless network handles that call via a dedicated predetermined route, which sends the call to the PSAP that has agreed to receive wireless E911 calls in that area. It's important to remember that the PSAPs are intimately involved in determining where calls from particular cell sites go, and that there's an updating process for those decisions that exist and is being used by the carriers. Associated information such as the callback number in case the call is interrupted, and also the initial caller location.
We have a quick question.
Sure.
Can I just make one addendum to that? I know that's how it's supposed to work.
Right.
But in practice, PSAPs don't always know any information about how many calls are destined for them in order to be able to ask for that tower to be routed for them. It's not like we go tower by tower and we make the proactive decision of who to route it to. These towers are defaulted routed to CHP and only not routed to CHP if a PSAP asks for them. Most PSAPs don't have the numerical data in order to ask for them to be routed to them. So that's just, I know that's how it's supposed to work. I just wanted to make the addendum of how it works on the ground, because though in theory these PSAPs have the options to have them routed to them, they usually don't have any of the information in order to know which cell towers to ask for to be routed to them.